Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is for what they call boxing royalty. This is for all of the marbles and for the grand prize and who will be competing for it. This is what they came to see. For the undisputed titles in the most stacked division in boxing, we got the Dream versus the Matrix, Devin Haney versus Vasily Lomachenko. It's here, it's finally happening, and I'm super stoked for this fight. This was a fight that needed to happen for two reasons. The first one being the obvious. It's the fact that boxing needs this. Again, I don't want to keep mentioning the same problem with boxing, but we know what the problem is. It's the fact that the best don't fight each other. Recently, we've actually been getting a lot of fights that we've been asking for, and a lot of them are very entertaining and they're the fights that we want to see. So it's nice that we have a very competitive fight between two technicians in the sport for the biggest title in boxing, known as the Undisputed. Secondly, Devin Haney and Lomachenko were supposed to fight each other years ago. Granted, Devin wasn't really an established boxer back then by any means. He didn't win a world title yet, and he didn't fight any notable names just yet. Dev and his dad wanted the fight to happen, but it was quickly shut down by Loma's manager. Dev felt personally disrespected and has now labeled this fight as personal for him, which we'll talk about more later in the video. Plus, another reason why this fight needed to happen is the fact that styles make fights. Loma was once pound for pound the best in the sport. He has a unique Ukrainian boxing style that has gave many people problems. Dev is one of the most talented boxers with great fundamentals in the lightweight division that certainly has the potential to have a promising career. This is why it's called a chess match, because both guys are insanely intelligent in the ring. Now I must say, I'm very satisfied with the promotion for this fight. Top Rank needs to give themselves a pat on the back for the amount of money and effort they put into advertising this fight. I mean, we've seen videos of behind the scenes footage of their training camps. We've also seen promo trailers on social media, face-to-face videos, and countless interviews where we get to see an insight into both of the fighters' minds heading into the fight. We've been connected to this fight as fans in many different ways, and through the promotion of this fight, we can clearly see that both guys are approaching the fight differently. Dev is the one that's doing a lot of the talking. Now this isn't unusual because if Dev gets the opportunity to talk, then he's not going to back down, especially if he doesn't like his opponent. He's expressing how he feels about Loma as a fighter, and he's making it known that he's not being cordial at all. He's been saying things like, "I don't like Loma, he made me wait 4 years, he's on his way out, I'm gonna send him into retirement." From all of this, it seems as though he's also carrying the same energy into the ring as he wants to stop Loma in the ring, and we can see that in his training footage. He's looking very sharp and focused, and he's sitting down on a lot of power punches, so we could see him follow through on his own word. He's essentially an open book in this fight because he's very confident that he's the better fighter. He doesn't care if his footage is out there. He doesn't think that Loma can do anything to beat him in the ring. Whereas Loma is more of the silent killer. He's the one that's moving and putting in the work in silence. And just like Devin Haney, this is also not unusual for Loma because he doesn't talk. He's not the type to sell the fight like that. He's not the type to talk trash, post on social media about his training, or engage in any of the pre-fight antics. Loma is pretty much the nice guy in this fight that's only looking to do all of the talking in the ring, and rightfully so, that's the only thing that matters to him. And I can respect it because he's been this way his entire career, and he doesn't feel the need to switch it up because this is a big fight. So what we can take away from this is that Dev is looking at this fight as personal, whereas Loma, this seems like it's just another fight for him. Well, I think we have our answer because the weigh-in for this fight kicked off yesterday, and I'm pretty sure everyone was just expecting them to just face off and then move on to the fight tomorrow. However, the unexpected happened when Dev actually gave a pretty hard shove to the chest of Loma. It was so surprising because Dev was so professional and held himself together very well during fight week. There was never a problem with them being near each other, so no one expected Dev to react the way that he did. So it is odd that at the very last minute, Dev decides to push Loma. A lot of people are saying that Dev is scared, including Loma. I personally think it was a bit random and uncharacteristic just because he wasn't really carrying that energy of being physical with Loma in any other meeting. They were chill with each other in every other interview. I'm not saying that this is the deciding factor, but that push could very well change the outcome of this fight. Because there's a chance that Dev could have woken up a monster in Loma. Before it was just a regular fight for him. Now I'm coming out there and taking his head off. But regardless, I'm not going to lie, that made the fight more exciting. As soon as I saw that on Twitter, immediately I was pumped for the fight. The NSAC has issued a complaint against Dev for the push against Loma, and he's expected to get fined for his actions. Now in my opinion, that's a bit weak and redundant. Yes, it was a hard shove, but if Loma's okay, then let's just roll. They're acting like Dev punched him and broke Loma's jaw. Like, let's not act like we haven't seen worse things happening during the face-off of a weigh-in. But anyways, let's move on to the matchup of this fight, the keys to victory for both men, and my official prediction on how I think this fight will unfold. So first, let's mention the fact that Devin is much younger. He's like a decade younger than Loma. On the other hand, Loma is 35 and people are expecting him to lose against Dev because he's no longer in his prime and as good as he once was. A lot of it stemmed from his last fight against Jermaine Ortiz, where he had a tough fight and people believe that he is no longer the same fighter and that he's not ready for Dev. However, even though it wasn't Loma's greatest performance, his opponent Ortiz was a very good challenger. He had qualities and strengths that allowed him to have success against Loma. He was not a walkover by any means, and Ortiz was also Loma's sparring partner. When you train and spar with someone long enough, you can get accustomed to the way they fight, and it seemed like Ortiz was ready for Loma. For Dev, he's been on a roll. He's coming off of 2 flawless victories against George Kambosos Jr. He won both fights by such a landslide that Kambosos probably won only 4 rounds max against Dev in both fights combined. However, styles make fights. As annoyingly as that sounds and as cliche as it sounds, it's the truth. George Kambosos Jr. is not Loma. I personally believe that Kambosos was not that elite. He beat Teofimo on his worst night and showed very little resistance and dominance against Dev. Also, if you take a look at the fights where Dev has fought a southpaw, preferably the one against Jojo Diaz, you would see that Dev is not as dominant compared to fighting orthodox fighters. Now, this isn't nothing new at all. You know, everybody struggles against southpaws. But there are holes in Devin's game that a southpaw like Loma could take advantage of despite him no longer being in his prime. Also, we need to point out that the size advantage is noticeable. Dev looks like the much bigger fighter in terms of size, height, reach, etc. The problem with making 135 at this stage in his career seems to be reoccurring as well. Alright, so now let's move on to the keys to victory for both men. Let's start with the champ first, Dev. We've been mentioning the obvious first the entire video, so let's continue to do it. Dev has to employ the jab. His jab is the biggest offensive weapon and one of the best in boxing. We saw it on full display against Kambosos, and it was the punch that captured the undisputed titles for him. However, this is a different fight with a different fighter. It's orthodox versus southpaw. Jabs don't normally land as often as orthodox versus orthodox, or southpaw versus southpaw, but that's not a reason for him to completely neglect it. It's what he does best, so he needs to use it to manage distance, frame, feint, and set up punches. His offense starts to flow if the jab starts to land, so it's important for him to make Loma address it by all means. Loma has said that Devin's jab is like Ryan Garcia's left hook, and I disagree, and I think that's false for 2 reasons. 1. Dev has a lot more in his arsenal compared to Ryan. Dev has better counterpunching ability, he has great upper body movement, he has decent inside game, and he can throw feints to set up his shots, whereas Ryan Garcia, he can't do the same. 2. A jab is a lot harder to take away than a left hook. A left hook has a much wider movement than a jab. Plus, with a jab, you can throw multiple jabs way easier than multiple left hooks. My coach once told me that no matter at what level of boxing, anybody who has a good jab will always be hard to beat. Secondly, there needs to be variety in his offense. Loma is a smart fighter, he knows what's coming. Dev needs to pull out all of the tools to keep Loma on his heels. We need to see jabs, right hands, hooks, uppercuts, body shots, and overhands. We need to see everything because Loma is looking for one punch and it's the jab. He's trained for it in training and he'll be ready for it during the fight. Thirdly, this one is a bit complicated, but hear me out. I think Dev needs to employ the strategy of doing what he does best, which is box on the outside, but at some point, I think Dev needs to hold his ground, sit down on his punches, be aggressive, and go toe-to-toe with Loma. Otherwise, I think there's going to be a lot of clinching if he doesn't do it. When Loma decides to mentally switch to being on the front foot and closing distance, it's hard to get him off of you. So Dev needs to gain that respect in that department. Lastly, I think volume at distance is necessary to not allow Loma to easily get on the inside. Ortiz was able to do this and it forced Loma to reset many times. Alright, so let's now talk about the keys to victory for Loma. I believe Lomachenko needs to start fast in order for him to pull away with an undeniable victory. And by starting fast, I'm not saying he has to throw a lot of punches and match Dev's activity. I'm talking about him needing to be aggressive with his feet. He needs to put the pressure on Dev early and force him to do things that he doesn't want to do. He needs to close distance, cut off the ring, and force Dev to address him early. Force him to do things that are not planned. In that way, Loma is forcing Dev to adjust early, and it could be mentally fatiguing. However, if Loma stays on the back foot, being inactive, and lets Dev dictate the pace, then he's going to have to play catch up. Secondly, Loma is known for his unorthodox combos. Most boxers, they throw a 1-2, but Loma, he likes to throw a 2-1. This catches boxers off guard because it's a combo that they don't usually see. If Dev wants to land the jab, then his foot will be on the inside of Loma's lead foot. That's an opportunity for Loma to try to land the 2-1. Loma also likes to lead with the left hand even though it's his power punch, which could be dangerous, but so far, Loma hasn't paid for it. And earlier I mentioned that Dev has great upper body movement. So in order to hit him clean, you have to catch him with a shot that he doesn't see. Jojo Diaz was able to do it and Dev didn't react well by it. So knowing that, thirdly, Loma has to attack the body. If the head is not available, then you cannot go head hunting. To slow down Dev's volume and activity, as the smaller man, he needs to break him down on the inside. Lastly, use what you're best known for, your footwork. Use angle changes on the inside to avoid clinch situations and getting hit. Bonus keys for both men are feints. They need to set up their shots in order to land. You don't land punches on great fighters without setting it up. And for both guys, they're a master at using feints. So for my official prediction, I got Devin Haney winning by a close UD, a razor close UD, or a split decision. I truly believe this fight will be a very competitive and hard fight for both men. Maybe the toughest test for both men in their career so far. Lomachenko certainly still has a lot to offer against Dev. As much as I want Loma to start faster, knowing him, he probably won't. So I think through the first 4 rounds, Dev is going to keep the fight at the center of the ring as much as possible. He'll be active with his jab while sticking and moving. He'll also initiate a lot of clinches to not allow Loma to be where he wants. Overall, I think Dev will control these early rounds with jabs, volume, footwork, and upper body movement. In the middle of the fight from about rounds 5 through 8, I think this is where Loma will start stepping up on the gas, increasing the pace, and start to walk Devin Haney down to cut off the ring. He'll close the distance using feints, jabs, footwork. He'll start to work the body on the inside and throw unorthodox combos. Once he starts finding his touch and rhythm, that's when he'll incorporate the angles to find openings for the shots that he wants to land. I believe once Loma is where he wants to be and finds his target, he will not let Dev off the hook. And then towards the championship rounds, I think it's going to be a bit more of a scrap. I think this is where Dev and Loma will display their competitive spirit. As much as this is a technical chess match, I believe it'll also come down to who wants it more. I think Dev will be more aggressive and plan it with his offense, and Loma will try to pin Dev up against the ropes and outwork him on the inside. However, this is where I think Dev's youth and conditioning will serve him well, as he'll likely be the more defensively responsible fighter that gets the better of some exchanges down the stretch. And because of that, he'll probably pull away just a bit. I expect it to be a game of reads and adjustments, but because both guys are so good at that their abilities to do that can cancel each other out. And at that point, it could just become a fight. If Loma wins, his career will be cemented. He had an amazing amateur career, and to achieve the undisputed crown at 35, I mean, you can only respect it. If Dev wins, then people gotta put some respect on his name. He ain't no email champ no more if he's the undisputed king. Now if he stops Loma, then that's a huge statement. You can't say that man got pillow hands after that. So final prediction, I think Dev will edge the victory slightly, but I will not be surprised if Loma becomes the new undisputed champ. I love Loma, I think his fighting style is great, but I love Dev as well. So may the best man win, and I'm so grateful to be a fan of the sport, and I'm so grateful to be able to witness this fight live. And that is it, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to what I have to say, and let me know, who do you have taking the undisputed crown today? Devin the Dream Haney or Vasily Lomachenko? Drop a comment and let me know in the comment section down below. Now if you guys enjoy content that is related to combat sports, please drop a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel down below. That would be greatly appreciated. Please follow my Twitter. I post a lot of tweets about combat, so if you're interested in that, please give it a follow and you won't be disappointed. And other than that, it's been Steven, signing out. Peace.